Hi, I'm Benjamin Mac Jackson, founder of the World War II Veterans History Project. I started this project in the summer of 2015 with the goal of providing knowledge and inspiration to my generation so they can better appreciate and understand what these heroes went through. My mission is to preserve the memories of the greatest generation. In this story, World War II veteran Bill Kuelz, a private in the U.S. Army, talks about his time serving as a soldier in the 37th Infantry Division in the Pacific Theater during the war. For months, he saw intense jungle warfare on various islands occupied by the Japanese. Later, he played the French horn in the 292nd Army Band in the Philippines and had several memorable encounters with General Douglas MacArthur. Hear his stories of sacrifice and survival fighting the Japanese during World War II.
My name is Bill or William Kuelz, K-U-E-L-Z, and I was in the service in the infantry with the 37th Infantry Division. After going on many patrols and everything else, because we find out the Japanese were moving into my island, and so I thought, oh gee, I said that doesn't sound good. But we started doing patrols. 6 or 7 of us would go out into the jungle to check to see how close the Japanese were getting. But we found out that they were moving closer and closer, and so I said, well, okay. He said, we got a little movement that you're going to be making. And I said, where is that? I said, it's going to be to New Caledonia. And then he says, from Caledonia, you are going to be close to actually the last island in coming to close to the United States. And so he says, you might see some action. When we were there, when we got onto the island, we started doing patrols. And it was maybe 6, 7 of us would get together, and we'd go through the jungle, trying to find out how close these Japs were. And so that happened, but the worst part of that was every so often, going through the jungle, the shots would ring out, and the Japanese were that close, and maybe one of our guys would get hit. Well, so that was actually really get a little too dangerous, but we got to be good friends of the natives on the island, and we talked to them and use them as guides, and they would go out and live there on that island, but they would come back to us to tell us how close the Japs were moving towards us. And so they did. So we got to be great friends with the native population. Every night almost, the Japs would come over, drop bombs, and so we had made foxholes for us to live in. As soon as we had the foxholes, we got down in them and that, but they were miserable because the water level is so high in those islands that we'd go running when the alarms would sound for the Japs were going to come with bombing. And so we would run, jump in the foxhole, but the darn foxhole was half filled with water because of the water level was so high. So he said it was a miserable place to be, but you stayed there and until it was coast was clear. When the Japs and they got the alarm, we would end up shooting. We had some guns and that, and we would the planes would come over, and we'd have a crew there that would be shooting at the planes. So it was a lot of noise, but you got used to it, and was lucky because it just so happened that my buddy that was with me in this foxhole, he was actually a good friend in peacetime. And so we got along really well. But, but it ended up that I had gone out of the foxhole. He had stayed there, but the Japs got through our line and circulated around. So there was firing, and it ended up that, after a while, it was calm and that, and he fell asleep. And when he fell asleep, one of the Japs sneaked up through the jungle, came up on our foxhole, and he, as soon as he got to our hole, he dropped a grenade in there, and it killed them right away. So I was just lucky that I didn't get in there with him. In going in these six, 7 guys, like patrol, and we went through the jungle looking to see how close the Japanese were getting to our lines. One shot would ring out, and it was coming at our little group. And we find out that we would watch where that one shot came from, but with those big banyan trees, we'd look around and you'd see up in one of those big banyan trees, the leaves would move a little bit. Well, we knew that's where they were because they told us that those Japanese are up in those trees. We'd start firing up in there, and if we were lucky enough, we would hit the right spot, and the Japanese would fall out of the tree. Well, the 6 of us, as soon as he fell down, we were hungry as could be, which probably shouldn't be, but we would quickly run over and grab hold of this Japanese that laid in the ground dead. And, well, we did everything from, for souvenirs to knock out their teeth and use them for souvenirs. And and anything we could get, we would take and strip the guy of for looking for a souvenir. You know? that was really crazy, but I never kept any of them. Well, I guess the Japanese decided they had to do something more, so they got more of them, and they decided to make a run at our runs, our barbed wire, go through the barbed wire. Well, we had a 50 caliber machine gun on one end and a 35 on the other end. And all of a sudden it got to be midnight one day, and these Japanese decided this is the time we're going to get up there and see once what we can do. So they started coming in, and man, there was more noise and firing from those guns and that. And but the whole trouble was that with the Japanese, we shot so many of them that they were coming through our barbed wire or trying to cut it or whatever, and they got 4 and 5 feet persons deep, and they were running over each other just to get through. It was really crazy, but but it worked, and of course all this barbed wire we had strung there, and that's the only way they could get in through us. They had to get through that barbed wire, and so there was some of them, but they got through by running and stumbling over their own men. Would you mind being transferred to another island? And it's to the 292nd Army Ground Force Band. I thought, oh, gee, that doesn't sound too bad. So get away from this kind of stuff. So I was transferred, and it ended up, I was sent to this band which was stationed in Manila, Philippines. And I got over there, and the band director, he happened to be from Wisconsin, so I really got off well with the band director, being up in the same area that I was at. Right after that, he said, okay, he said, you guys, and this was hot and sticky weather, so we didn't wear too many clothes in the band. This one day, the band director came in and he says, okay, you guys, he says, you gotta dress up a little bit and look decent, because he says, we're gonna have some important fellas coming in here. So sure enough, next morning, and knock on the door, and he said, and there was 2 generals there, and right behind them was General MacArthur. And I thought, wow, because he was, ahead of everything. MacArthur was. But so he came in, and we played a few songs, and he said, so we questioned him and asked him where he was staying, and he was living in a kind of small hotel there on the island, and so he said that, he says, I really like music, MacArthur said. And so a lot of times while he was there, he would come in the morning, and he'd sit down, bring out his corncob pipe, pui, and we'd play some songs. He'd sit there listening to us, and so we got really along with him well. We were going into town and looking around, and we'd run into General MacArthur with his car and that, and so we talked to him, and he liked coming to us because he liked music that well. But he was quite the guy. Interesting thing being in the band. You know, once I got in there, it was more like living a decent life instead of out in the jungle and that. But, and then, of course, when all these USO shows used to be sent over there, and with MacArthur being in that area, so we got, you know, most of the USOs and the people that would come over to entertaining, we got them because of the generals and that. When I look back, and I thought that I was one of the really lucky ones being involved with everything that I had. I said, sure, I said I was, had some bad places to be in with all the firing with the rifles and everything else and get involved with this. But I said, overall, I said, I think I was happy as could be, that I thought I had a decent job and met many, many people. So I was satisfied with what I turned out to be. And of course, I said the biggest thing that happened was when I got out of the infantry and I got involved with music, with the bands. I met all these bands that came over there from the States, and I talked to them, and so I said it was actually fun.
Mr. Kuelz is 92 years old and resides in Claremont, Florida. To learn more about the World War II Veterans History Project, please visit our website at www.veteranshistoryproject.com. We look forward to seeing you again for more exciting stories from the greatest generation.